Something that I'm realizing more and more is apart from your relationship with God, who you marry is one of the most important decisions you will ever take. And the absolute shocking nature of how people look at each other and treat each other in relationships is very important to address. To identify and to pre-identify the wrong people, people who are going to lie to you that they love you, and yet actually they hate you. They lead you into sexual sin. They lead you into immorality. They don't develop you. They use you as a sexual object. And these are certain identification methods I really want to try and teach the children.
Which is more likely, a woman taking responsibility for her role in why a relationship ended, or blaming the former partner?
A woman blaming a former partner.
I think that question is too general.
Is it like kind of like blame someone else, like mentality kind of thing, or?
Yeah, just because they don't like to take the responsibility. Sometimes we're irrational, so that's why, probably.
You want to know a really quick way of uncovering a red flag and finding out if your new crush is a high quality woman, somebody who is worth pursuing? Simply ask her this question. So, what went wrong with your previous relationship? If she gives the wrong answer to this question, that is a red flag. Move on. This girl is not worth investing in. The wrong answer, of course, is some variation of, it's entirely his fault. I was blameless.
This is also extremely important in the friends you get and also the business partners you get. Listening to what people say. If people cannot admit to mistakes, if people cannot own up to their part that went wrong, they are people that do not do any introspection, and your relationship with them, it will always be your fault most probably. Everything that goes wrong will be your fault, and there will also be people that can never improve or grow. Because to grow, one of the most important parts is cutting off your mistakes and improving the things you did wrong. So this is an absolute waste of time. Here's his actual heading for his YouTube video. If she can't answer this question, dump her. It is so critical to be with people when they talk about their past, business relationships, romantic relationships, parents. Listen to what they say. Listen to how they speak. Do they own up to their share? Are they vindictive? Do they talk bitterly about people? Have they got a mentality that the world is against them? Or are they on a growth path? If they're not on a growth path, developing and cutting off their weak points, but they're on a growth path down, blaming everyone else, you will go on that ride with them straight down if you marry, date, or go into business with them.
She might not say it in those words. She might say, my ex neglected me. He didn't appreciate me the way that I was meant to be appreciated. My ex was abusive. If you hear an answer like that, become very suspicious. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that it's impossible that she didn't have an ex who was abusive. There are lots of men out there who mistreat women. And I'm also not victim blaming. I'm not saying that it's a red flag that she used to be in an abusive relationship. That's not the issue. Very few people have a completely clean past. The red flag is her answer. She's placing all of the blame outside of herself. There's no indication of any kind of personal responsibility, and that's not really good enough. You want to know what was her role in creating that dynamic. Surely, at least part of the blame for why the relationship didn't work out must lie with her. And if she is presenting herself as a 100% pure, innocent angel who is subject to a 100% evil, malicious man, there is reason to be suspicious. By far the most common scenario is it was some of that person's fault and some of that person's fault. So if she was in a toxic relationship with her ex-boyfriend, that is not necessarily a problem so long as she recognizes what part she played in creating that dynamic and demonstrates that she's able to take personal responsibility. If she completely denies that any fault lies with her, she won't take responsibility, then what is to stop her from replaying that exact same dynamic with you. When you meet a woman, you need to make sure that she's going to be worth your time, that this is a good investment. You don't have time to spend 3 months with a girl just ignoring all the red flags and avoiding all the big topics, only to find out, surprise, surprise. If you're a high quality man, you don't have that kind of time to waste, so have the tough conversations early. Ask her, why did your last relationship not work out? You need to hear some evidence of personal responsibility, and you feel safe to know that history is not going to repeat itself. So you see, if a woman comes to you and she has a story of victimhood from a previous relationship, that's not necessarily problematic. It's not like you can't show compassion, love, and care towards that person. But that doesn't mean that you don't also need to show love, care, and compassion towards yourself. And that means doing your due diligence and protecting yourself against somebody's dysfunctional psychology. You need to know that she has the emotional self-awareness to identify what it was inside herself that created that relationship dynamic.
I want to give you 7 things, 7 red flags that you absolutely need to be aware of to avoid dating someone that you don't want to be with. And this is true of both men and women. The first thing is that if the person that you are dating has friends that you don't like, chances are the person you're dating is someone you eventually will not like. Now, of course, you want to treat them as an individual, right? You're saying they're not like their friends. They don't have these qualities, so why should I ascribe to them qualities that I see in these other people? And if that's a wonderful feeling, but the truth is we are all products of the 5 people that we hang out with the most. We're like our friends, especially if we spend a lot of time with them. Guess what? The person that you are seeing is probably putting on a face. In reality, they're much more like their friends than they want you to believe. They just want to impress you early on so they don't let you know. The second thing is very similar to that, and it's if you want to know how somebody's going to behave when things aren't going so well and they no longer feel the need to impress you, look at how they treat wait staff, look at how they treat service people, and look at how they treat anyone in the world that seems or they feel has lower status than they do. So while they might be very sweet to you and understanding of your flaws, if they are really, really rude or unkind or not understanding when the waiter makes a mistake, when that's you, after several months, you will likely receive that same pattern. Is be wary when someone breaks confidence in order to tell you a secret, especially early on. Don't repeat this, I was asked not to say this, but, and then tells you something. That's a pretty good indicator that they are breaking the confidence of somebody else who asked them not to say something. In fact, somebody that they probably have known longer than they've known you. And while it might make you feel special, they trust me so much, they're telling me this, guess what? Eventually, you'll be the person telling them secrets that they are going and blabbing on about. But secrets aren't even the real issue here. It's how they treat their word. They likely, at least implicitly, let that person know that they wouldn't say it, and then they broke their word. They told you. That is a horrible, horrible trait in someone that you're looking to date. The fourth thing is going to be heavily engaging in social media or anything else that is very appearance-based. Did a certain thing because they're concerned with reputation that tends to correspond to less time spent on their character, less time spent on who they are. So while they might look like they're making all this wonderful progress and they're meeting these amazing people or climbing mountains, if that's all the photos and the imagery and the words that you're seeing on social media, it can very, very often be the case that behind the scenes, and I've heard and seen so many stories, that is the complete opposite. On the contrary, when someone is doing those things, you might get a post here and there, but it's not going to be the main focus. They're actually doing it in their life. So if you and the person you're dating have very different social media habits, it's likely that you have very different values as well, and you are probably not a match. The fifth thing, if someone has a history of not having long-lasting relationships, be wary. This one is perhaps a little bit more obvious, but I feel like I need to say it because I have part of myself, and I know that a lot of people out there do, feel like they want to rescue people. When they see someone that's in dire straits, they feel like it can help. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel special to help. Plus, it helps them. Fantastic. And it's very easy to be lured in by stories of, this is why I'm no longer close to my family. This is why I had to get rid of my best friend. And then my new best friend did this and betrayed me in this way. But if you start to hear these stories on loop, and you find that this person has no long-lasting relationships, that is generally a sign, of course, that the common thread is them, and that the stories that you're getting are rationalizations, and the family members or friends would have a very different tale. Now, it is of course the case that people do come from really rough family backgrounds on occasion, and that in order to live their healthiest life, they might have had to extricate themselves from their family or from a group of friends. But if it's a repeat thing and you're seeing it all the time, then you really do need to be wary. Next up, this is very, very related to this one. Number 6 is going to be if they talk about their breakups and their ex in a way that puts all of the responsibility onto their ex, that is a horrible, horrible sign. And of course it feels nice for a second when someone's telling you about your breakup. That wasn't your fault. It was your ex who did all these crazy things, you poor soul. But really, we all make mistakes, whether it's in choosing the person and staying with the person and creating fights and perpetuating fights. If you're in a situation and in a relationship that is ongoing, you are partially to blame. There is things to be learned and responsibility to be taken. So if you're talking to someone, this is true in business, and this is true in any sort of split that happens in life, and you are not hearing them take responsibility in any way, it's just that this person is a bad person, they did this, and good people like me just get taken advantage of, guess what? They have no self-awareness, they have not self-reflected, and they haven't fixed the problem that they contributed to, which means you're up next. They're going to have the same problems in the relationship with you, so be very wary.